The tension builds. The Galactic Council chamber was silent, but the silence was not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Tall pillars of silver metal rose high into the shadows of the ceiling, glowing faintly with blue light. Around a massive circular table sat leaders from dozens of alien races, their faces marked with anger, worry, and calculation. In the center of the chamber floated a projection of Earth spinning slowly, its oceans and continents shining like a jewel against the dark. The council had met many times before, but never with such heavy words in the air. The subject was humanity. For years, humanity had grown faster than anyone expected. Within a single century, they had moved from a single planet to dozens of colonies across the stars. They had built fleets, stations, and weapons. Their technology, once primitive, now rivaled some of the oldest civilizations. Their armies, though small compared to galactic powers, fought with a fury that unsettled even the most experienced generals of the Council. One elder of the Korath, a reptilian race with scales like blackstone, slammed his claw against the table. His voice hissed through the hall. "They are too dangerous. Humanity must be contained before they spread further." A tall, crystalline being shimmered in reply, its voice ringing like glass breaking. "Contain them? They are not animals. They are clever, quick, and united when threatened. They will not allow chains, but if we delay, they will soon challenge the order of the galaxy itself." Whispers passed among the gathered rulers. Some spoke of diplomacy, others of warnings, and still others of punishment. One race suggested cutting off trade. Another suggested surrounding human colonies with fleets until they surrendered. And then came the darkest suggestion of all. "They should be destroyed," said a voice colder than ice. It came from a figure cloaked in shadows, the representative of a species known only for their long memory of war. Not reduced, not controlled, erased. The words fell heavy into the chamber. Many turned their eyes away, but no one openly argued. Above them, the projection of Earth kept turning, its blue oceans reflecting light like calm water. It looked peaceful, innocent, unaware of the decision being shaped in that chamber. Far away, on Earth itself, life continued as always. People walked in the streets, children played in fields, and ships launched from ports to carry supplies to colonies. No one knew that, in the silence of a distant hall, their very existence was being weighed like numbers on a scale. The council leader, an ancient being with skin like folded parchment, raised his hand. The chamber grew still once more. His voice was soft but final. "We cannot allow humanity to continue unchecked. They are not ready for their strength. If they rise further, they will burn the stars themselves. Tonight we will decide their fate." The great table glowed with light as the voting began. One by one, symbols appeared: yes, no, abstain. One by one, the lights shifted until a pattern formed. The result was clear. The council had chosen against humanity. When the last light blinked, the hall seemed to exhale. Some faces were filled with grim satisfaction. Others looked uneasy, as if they had crossed a line they could never retreat from. No one in that chamber spoke of the risk. No one admitted the fear behind their choice. They only told themselves it was necessary, that the galaxy would be safer without humanity rising too far, too fast. But fear has a way of creating the very enemy it seeks to destroy. What the council did not know was that secrets have a way of escaping. Somewhere among them, a silent observer had already made the decision to carry the truth back to humanity. Somewhere in the shadows, someone understood what this betrayal would mean. Back on Earth, the skies burned orange as the sun fell behind the horizon. Lights lit up across the cities. Families gathered for meals. Pilots returned from missions. Scientists worked late in their labs. Soldiers trained under the stars. They did not know it yet, but their lives were about to change forever. The council had crossed the line, and humanity, once pushed, would not forgive. The narrator's voice lingers like a shadow. This was the day the tension snapped, the moment history shifted. The galaxy believed humanity would bow. Instead, it was the day they learned the truth. The day humanity snapped. Humanity learns the truth. The decision of the Galactic Council was meant to be secret. They thought their words would stay locked within the high walls of their chamber, guarded by silence and shadow. But secrets, like cracks in stone, always find a way to spread. Among the translators, record keepers, and silent machines that served the Council, there was one who did not agree. An unknown figure copied fragments of the meeting, voices of alien leaders declaring humanity too dangerous, too bold, too fast. That recording traveled in silence, carried by hidden hands until it reached human space. It was late evening on Earth when the first broadcast appeared. A small news channel, not trusted by many, played the recording. At first it seemed like a trick. The voices were strange, alien, layered with static. But soon the truth could not be denied. It spread from one network to another, from colony to colony, until every human world had heard the words of betrayal. In the streets of cities, people gathered around public screens. In orbiting stations, workers stopped their duties, listening in disbelief. The message was the same everywhere. The council had voted. They had chosen against humanity. At first there was silence. Shock hung heavy as if no one knew what to say, but then came anger. It began like sparks in dry grass, small and scattered. On Mars, voices rose in protests. On Luna base, miners shouted in fury. On distant colonies near the edge of space, settlers declared they would never bow to alien judgment. And then, the spark became fire. Human leaders called emergency meetings. Military officers gathered in war rooms. The evidence was undeniable. The aliens had not only spoken against humanity, they had planned to control them, weaken them, or worse, erase them entirely. The president of the Terran Union stood before the cameras with a voice calm but sharp. They see us as a threat. They see us as something to erase. But we are not afraid. We will not kneel. Humanity has earned its place among the stars, and no council will take that from us. The words spread like lightning. People who once felt divided now felt united by a single truth. They were all human, and they were all under threat. In military hangars, ships that had been resting in silence powered up, their engines glowing. Soldiers strapped on armor, their faces hard with resolve. Engineers worked night and day, building new weapons, new defenses, new strategies. Scientists abandoned safe projects and turned to dangerous ones, creating tools that might change battles in ways no alien could expect. Ordinary people joined in their own way. Farmers offered food for fleets. Workers built machines without sleep. Students became messengers and volunteers. The human spirit, once scattered across many worlds, now beat as one heart. And yet in the quiet corners of human space there was fear. Parents held their children close. Colonists on fragile outposts wondered if fleets of alien warships would soon appear above their skies. Some whispered that it was impossible to fight the Council. The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had fleets beyond counting. They had power beyond imagination. But humanity had something different. They had fury. They had the fire of survival. In the control center of the Human Defense Fleet, Admiral Reyes stood before his officers. The recording of the Council's betrayal played again in the background, the alien voices repeating their cold judgment. His jaw was set, his hands tight behind his back. "They believe we will bow," he said, his voice low but steady. "They believe we will break, but they have made one mistake. They have forgotten who we are. We are survivors. We are fighters. And when pushed to the wall, humanity does not fall. Humanity strikes." The officers rose in silence, their faces reflecting the fire of his words. Orders were given. Codes were sent. Across human space, fleets began to move. Far away, in the same skies where children played and families dined, starships rose quietly into orbit. They did not announce their purpose. They did not wave banners. But every person aboard knew the truth. The Council had declared humanity an enemy, and humanity had chosen its answer. The galaxy was about to change forever. The narrator's voice whispers like a warning. The Council thought their betrayal would remain hidden. Instead, it lit a fire that would burn across the stars. Humanity had heard the truth, and there was no turning back. The first strike, the galaxy did not believe humanity would act so soon. The Council had made its choice, but they expected fear and silence. They thought humanity would argue, protest, or perhaps send desperate messages begging for mercy. Instead, humanity prepared for war. Admiral Reyes sat in the command chair of the Resolute, one of Earth's newest warships. His eyes studied the stars displayed across the screen, lines of light marking possible routes. Around him, officers worked in silence, their movements sharp, their voices calm but heavy with purpose. Every person on that ship knew the risk. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. But they were also united by something stronger than fear. They want us to kneel, Reyes said quietly, almost to himself. We will show them we never will. The order was given. Far from Earth, near the trade routes of the Velon species, a council supply hub floated above a barren moon. It was large, heavily shielded, and surrounded by defense satellites. Ships came and went each hour carrying food, weapons, and medicine to the fleets of the council. To most it was untouchable, but humanity had been watching. From the darkness of space, a squadron of human warships emerged. They moved with discipline, their hulls painted black, their engines burning with a quiet red glow. The crew inside held their breath, knowing what this moment meant. The first strike would tell the galaxy that humanity had chosen defiance. The defenders at the hub reacted late. They were not expecting war. They thought humans would still be debating, still arguing. By the time alarms echoed through the station, the first missiles were already flying. The night of the barren moon lit up like day. Explosions tore through the satellites, breaking them apart into burning fragments. Human railguns fired with a precision that came from months of hidden planning. Shields collapsed. Hangars erupted in fire. The council forces scrambled to respond. Alien warships rose from the docks, firing beams of energy across the void. But the humans did not fight like the others. They did not fight with fear or hesitation. They fought with fury. The Resolute led the attack, diving through enemy fire with impossible speed. Its cannons roared, tearing into the side of a council cruiser. Another human ship, the Iron Dawn, struck from below, cutting off the enemy's escape. Within minutes, the great hub that had stood strong for decades was broken, its core engulfed in flames. Inside the human ships, the crews cheered, but it was not a cheer of joy. It was the sharp cry of a people who had been betrayed and finally struck back. The news spread across the galaxy like a storm. For the first time in living memory, a younger race had attacked the council directly and won. Entire worlds whispered in disbelief. Alien leaders demanded answers. Was it arrogance, madness, or was humanity truly ready to stand against them all? Back in the council chamber, the silence was even deeper than before. The same voices that had called for humanity's destruction now shouted in anger. They dare strike us, one cried. Another demanded fleets to crush them at once. But beneath the shouting there was something else. A shadow of fear, because they all knew what the humans had done. They had struck fast, precise, and without hesitation. That kind of attack did not come from desperation. It came from planning. It came from certainty. On Earth, Admiral Reyes stood before his soldiers. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his voice carried strength. The council thought we would bow. They thought their decision would break us. But today we showed them the truth. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We fight! The soldiers roared in reply, their fists raised, their eyes burning with fire. But even in that moment of victory, there was no illusion. Humanity knew what would come next. The council would not ignore this. They would send fleets larger than anything humanity had faced before. The true war was only beginning. In the quiet of the night, families on Earth looked up at the stars. Some felt pride. Some felt fear. But all understood one truth. The line had been crossed. There was no turning back. The narrator's voice falls into silence, then returns with a whisper. The first strike had been made. The galaxy now knew that humanity would not bend, but with that single act, humanity had awakened a storm that could consume them all. The wrath unleashed. The first strike had shaken the galaxy, but it was only the beginning. Humanity's attack on the Council's supply hub spread fear and disbelief across countless worlds. For races that had grown used to the Council's power, the thought of a younger species striking and winning was unthinkable. Yet it had happened, and humanity was not finished. Admiral Reyes stood in the war room aboard the Resolute. A great map of stars glowed across the table, showing the positions of human fleets and Council outposts. His officers stood around him silent, their faces lit by the red glow of tactical screens. They underestimated us once, Reyes said, his voice steady. We will show them that was their final mistake. Orders rippled outward. Human fleets spread like fire through the night. They struck not in one place, but many. Small raiding groups appeared without warning, hitting supply lines, ambushing patrols, and vanishing before the Council could respond. Colonies that had been isolated for years suddenly rose with defiance, joining the fight. Everywhere, the Council felt the sharp edge of human rage. On the colony world of Vega Prime, human ground forces stormed a Council garrison that had stood for decades. The aliens within expected an easy defense, but the humans fought with a fury that could not be stopped. Streets turned into battlefields, skies burned with fire, and when the dust cleared, the human flag rose above the central tower. In orbit around Europa Station, a small human fleet faced a Council armada twice its size. The Council commander demanded surrender, his voice echoing across the channel with arrogance. But instead of surrender, the humans charged. The battle was brutal, ships tearing each other apart at close range. When it ended, the Council armada was in ruins and the humans still held the field. The galaxy began to whisper. Stories spread from world to world. Tales of human soldiers who fought even when wounded, who refused to give ground, who would rather die than bow. Aliens who once laughed at humanity now looked at the stars with unease. Inside the Council chamber, chaos grew. Leaders shouted over one another. Some demanded the complete extermination of humanity, calling them a plague. Others, shaken by the speed of human victories, urged peace before the war grew worse. But unity was gone. Fear had split the Council apart. One elder spoke with a voice filled with dread. You do not understand them. They are not like us. We fight for power, for territory, for pride. They fight for survival. And there is nothing in this galaxy more dangerous than a species that fights with survival in its heart. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mood was fierce. Cities buzzed with energy as factories ran day and night, building new weapons and ships. Volunteers lined up in endless rows, ready to serve. Families sent their sons and daughters with both fear and pride. The betrayal of the Council had awakened something in humanity that had slept for centuries. A burning unity, a shared rage. Admiral Reyes knew the risks. Every victory carried a cost. Ships were lost, soldiers buried, colonies scarred. Yet with every sacrifice, the human spirit only grew stronger. One night aboard the Resolute, he stood alone at the viewing deck, staring into the sea of stars. His reflection was tired, his face lined with shadows. He thought of the Council, of the vote that had condemned his people. He thought of the families who had suffered, the children who now looked to the stars with fear instead of wonder. They pushed us too far, he whispered, and now they will see who we truly are. The wrath of humanity spread across the galaxy like a storm. Council fleets fell back, their commanders shaken by losses they could not explain. They had more ships, more weapons, more resources, but the humans fought with something greater than numbers. They fought with fury. A single word began to echo across human space, painted on banners, whispered in camps, carved into steel. Never again would humanity kneel. Never again would they allow others to decide their fate. The narrator's voice deepens, carrying the weight of history. The Council thought they could break humanity with fear. Instead, they awakened its wrath. Across the stars, battles raged, empires trembled, and the galaxy learned a truth it had long forgotten. When pushed too far, humanity does not fall. Humanity rises. The war had spread faster than anyone could have predicted. What began as whispers of rebellion became fire across the stars. Humanity, once thought too young and too weak, had forced the greatest powers of the galaxy onto their heels. The Council's grand fleets had been broken again and again. Their ships outnumbered the humans, yet the victories slipped from their hands like sand. In every battle, they found themselves outmaneuvered. In every ambush, they saw strategies that seemed impossible for a race so young. But it was not numbers or technology alone that won those battles. It was fury, unity, and the refusal to surrender. The Council chamber, once a place of arrogance and certainty, was now filled with shadows of doubt. The alien leaders who once shouted about humanity's destruction now sat silent, their eyes heavy with fear. Holoscreens lined the walls, replaying the news of recent battles. Human warships cutting through fleets twice their size, colonies rising in defiance, flags of Earth flying where once the Council had ruled. An elder of the Valon slammed his fist against the table. His voice shook with disbelief. How can this be? They are nothing compared to us. They were supposed to kneel. Another leader, pale and trembling, whispered the truth no one wanted to admit. They fight with something we cannot measure. They fight as if every star belongs to them, as if every battle is their last. The Council leader, the same one who had raised his hand to condemn humanity, sat in silence. His face was older than stone, but even he looked broken. He remembered the night of the vote, the moment he believed humanity could be controlled. Now he saw the cost of that mistake. Regret settled into the chamber like smoke. Meanwhile, across human space, there was no celebration. The victories were hard-won, paid for with lives and sacrifice. Entire fleets had been lost. Colonies had burned, yet the human spirit remained unbroken. Admiral Reyes, standing aboard the Resolute, watched the reports come in. His officers spoke of victories, but he could not smile. He knew this was not triumph. It was survival. In one recording, a council world surrendered without a fight. Its leaders sent a single message: "We will not oppose humanity any longer. We have seen what happens to those who try." The galaxy was changing. Races that had once bowed to the council now looked toward humanity with new eyes. Some with fear, some with hope, all with respect. Reyes knew what that meant. Humanity had not only defended itself, it had rewritten its place among the stars. But with that power came a shadow. The council would never forget the humiliation, and other races would watch carefully, waiting to see if humanity would become the very empire it had fought against. On Earth, people lit candles for the fallen. Streets were filled with both sorrow and pride. Parents told their children the story of betrayal, of the council's mistake, of the day humanity snapped. They told them not as a warning, but as a lesson, that no one, no matter how great, could decide humanity's fate, but humanity itself. Back in the council chamber, the leader finally spoke. His voice was weak, his words heavy. "We thought they would bow. We thought we could shape them as we shaped others. But we forgot the danger of fire. Once lit, it does not obey. Humanity will never be the same, and neither will we." The chamber fell silent. Every leader knew the truth. The war was not only about fleets and planets. It was about fear and respect. The council had crossed a line, and in doing so, had created an enemy they could never control. The narrator's voice closes the chapter with cold finality. The galaxy would carry the scars of this war for centuries. But one memory would remain above all: the night the council chose arrogance over wisdom, and the day humanity snapped. It was the day when the council's fear became reality. The day when their regret was carved into the stars themselves.